At last.
Has Clark reached out to you? Well, let me give you a short history lesson about the last few months of my life. 3 different people contacted me, claiming that somewhere in their history, they might be Roottrees. First, that young man, the rapper. I ignored that one. He seemed dubious. But then I saw the news. I felt terrible, so I began helping the others. Because my doubts with Felix were so misfounded, I ended up putting too much faith in the second person that approached me. I went to the media prematurely. I admit my mistake there. But the third person who contacted me also had a credible case. Before I could help, the company got to them somehow. The fact that the family silenced them doesn't seem to fill me with hope when it comes to Clark's intentions. But you're making progress based on the leads he gave you. It's really hard for me to get a read on him. I'll let you handle it.
Hooray!
I've sent you the case I've been working on, and some company records I managed to track down. The records are quite dense, but hopefully they're useful. Good luck!
Ooh, lots of new evidence. I hoped there would be, considering I found literally nothing to do with most of this board. Still, nice to have this section complete. Also, nice to be wrong up here, because, yeah, your surname. Which, I figured. But I don't think I have any other information on what your surname is. Unless I've missed something, which I probably have. How is this still on 2, as it is not refreshed yet? It's just not refreshed yet. That makes a lot more sense. Okay. We have more evidence to look through. We have a picture given by Sam Marsden. A woman named Regina Clementine came to her and confessed that her husband came to her and claimed that her husband has confessed he thinks he's a Rootree. Details of this case can be found in your evidence. Stuart is the older boy wearing a vest. The woman is Mary Beth Clementine, a singer who may have had an affair with Miracle Rootree. Oh, really? Orange. Or Clementine, rather. Before I dive too deeply into that, we have this interview here. This was a cable news interview. A transcript of only Caroline's answers has been posted on a site about television. Thanks for having me. I never really fit into the family, so it doesn't surprise me. She could have put me in if she wanted to talk about my time during my activism days, when I almost got arrested for stealing the spark plugs out of all her tractors, but I don't think it fit her narrative. Yes and no. They never tried to kick me out or send me to live on a farm, if that's what you mean. I was already pretty unpopular, and once people learned why I divorced my husband, few people paid me any attention. She's my wife, not legally, but we've been together for half our lives, call it what it is. I was 20 and I just had my daughter. I hate to look back on that time because I was a terrible mother the first few years. I left my daughter with my ex-husband and followed a guy on a private jet to Europe. He lost a tooth and a client. I found love and a better understanding of who I was. Still, in our family's eyes, his trip was somehow more acceptable. Explain that. No, I couldn't stand him. Our family wrote off his behaviour like he was some huge fan of romance or women, but he didn't like the entire woman. It was doubly awkward for me because he was more supportive than most. I slowly figured out it was because he assumed I would be as shallow as he was. He was a workaholic. He seemed life himself and did a good job. I didn't know him well. That was one of Sam's problems with our family, and none of us did, except Carl. Honestly, I get why she's pissed. I'd rather not speak ill of the dead, and not unless you want more stories about Guy. With Carl, though, all I can see is that we used to be friends before they sent him to private school. He came back a lot judgier. It made sense when they made him president. He was a lot like my father after they disciplined the fun out of him. After I started protesting the farms, he stopped returning my calls. Oh, well, he's harder to label. When I was a teenager, he was basically drunk or high or both all the time. He actually used to sell me pot. His problems with women were different from Guy's, but he never really judged me. I guess he knew it would be pretty hypocritical to judge anyone for anything. Back then, he was destructively unreliable in every way, but nowadays he's just kind of boring and old. I prefer that to how he used to be, and to Guy and Carl, but it's still a cautionary tale. I hope I'm never that boring and old. No intuition. Alright. Well, I think I pretty much ended up running out of stuff. We've got a few more leads here. But this is done. We've got all of these names to look into still. We've got that. We've got this to follow up on. And we have this new stuff. From 6 pieces at prodigy.us to genealogygb at prodigy.us. Please consider saving a tree and not printing this email. That's the book we already have, right? Yeah. This is all the information I have about Regina Clementine, nee Salazar. Where are we in this book? Do we really need more information on this? Maybe. I'd probably better start another new page. Yeah, so this is gonna be about... Well, we don't even know his name yet. Is his name mentioned early in here? It is. Let's use that name, because that is the person of relevance. This is all the information I have about Regina Clementine nee Salazar from New Orleans, Louisiana, and her husband, Stuart Clementine. She wrote to me about a month ago. Apparently the Roottrees lawyers went after her since then. By the time I received her letter and called her, she told me she wouldn't cooperate anymore. Her husband, who was a police officer and never knew his father, told her he thought he might be a Rootree, but he's estranged from his family and didn't want to pursue it because he had no proof. She wrote to me behind his back. Normally I wouldn't be so sure, but she had some pretty credible facts. Some of it I've been able to confirm. Stuart's mother was named Mary Beth Clementine. She was pretty well known in the 30s to 50s, a singer who went on tour in a lot of churches. Let's get rid of that note that I just made and highlight the singer bit. You can look her up online, and she was a pretty big proponent of adoption. I know for a fact that she came to Butler County a few times. I remember her from when I was younger. And Regina said that Stuart told her that they always seem to spend a lot of time at the Miracle Church. She sent me a photo to prove that she's who she says she is. I've attached it to this email. Okay. Well, that's a few pieces of stuff stuff already. But I don't even know which one of these two trees to start putting it all on yet. Though adoption means maybe down here. Let's try and get some more information first. We're given some partial staff records to cross-reference. These records are based on old tax mailing information and only detail the employees that worked directly for Roottrees or in their corporate office. The many labourers on their farms and in their factories are not listed. Not sure how helpful it would be, apart from cross-referencing Guy's secretaries and visits overseas. Spider searching people because they are listed in these books will likely be very time-consuming and a waste of your time. Okay, well, this is actually helpful already, because we need a name for Joanna, and we have it here. Robertson. Nice. I am now confident that that is correct. Good start. And many, many, many other names. Hey look. There's Sam. In 1977, it was announced that Zach would be retiring and Guy would be taking over at the start of 1978. They held a retirement party in November before spending the final month working on the transition. During 1976 and 77, the following changes took place. There's her name change, in case you wanted it spelled out extremely obviously. In 1978, Guy Hudson took over. This began a particularly volatile period in the company's staffing. Many travel expenses were listed, and Guy began trying to develop new five-piece flavors. The following changes were recorded. What the heck is that? It's an interesting name. Might want to look up that one. Susan Ford as an interpreter. Interesting. There's the mention of Brazil, where he apparently bribed a politician. '80 to '81, volatility continued, and many new employees didn't tend to stick around very long. Lots of expenses. It's another thing that immediately jumps out to me as something that I might be able to search. Claire Hudson died in May of 1982, so the first 3 months of that year continued along the same pattern as they had been. Things quickly changed when Ernie took over. Most of the extraneous expenses ended, and all of the secretaries, most handpicked by Guy Hudson, were let go. Sam Madsen left Roottrees in 1984, so this is the last set of books you have access to. That's another company name that I might be able to look up. Okay. Well, we're gonna have to search some stuff. I think to get anywhere further with this, we're gonna have to search some stuff. Yeah, I'm not confident filling anything in yet. Not yet. Before I lose track of it completely, let's go back to this set of names and see if we can't find anything. Kurt Johnston and Mark Sanchez were the pilot and co-pilot of the Roottrees jet during its crash last December, though the investigation has not been released, foul play has been ruled out. Trish King was on the cabin crew of the Roottrees private jet. Elizabeth Nicholson, who went by Eliza, lived in a house with her family about 200 yards from the section of the woods where the plane crashed. She reportedly had a heart attack during the commotion, and the family were unable to reach emergency services due to the overwhelmed phone lines and ongoing storm. Her son-in-law managed to flag down an officer responding to the crash, but it was too late. That probably means none of these names are going to find me anything else of particular relevance. Let's look them all up in here as well, just in case, but I think we're probably safe enough to cross these off the list. Yeah, I think this is utterly irrelevant for our purposes. We've read this already. Okay. Let's start looking into this section of proceedings. Let's start with some of the things that we noticed in the company records. The Effigy site that once had a clock on it no longer exists. It directs to a site for a telephone number called 1010-250, which frustratingly keeps popping up advertisements in new windows every few seconds. I managed to close them, but it sure is annoying. Right, this is the advertising firm. The Grandorf School for the Deaf, funnily Grandorf Dove, is located about an hour from where the Roottrees offices used to be in Butler County, but it serves much a part of that Pennsylvania and nearby Ohio. According to their website, it was formerly named Grandorf Dove from 1923 to 1990 because Grandorf was the last name of the founder and Dove is a Danish word for deaf. The founder had issues with government translators, leading to an odd transcription issue. In 1990, it was renamed to better represent the school's purpose and to correct the embarrassing amount of effort and awareness demonstrated by the government officials in those early days. The staff is listed on the website. You scan through all of the biographies and find that the principal, Miss Ford, is fluent in 5 languages, including American Sign Language, ASL. She's been working at the school for over 15 years. Miss Ford's bio also mentions she's not deaf herself, but rather learned sign language to communicate with the deaf. It mentions she was responsible for securing funding for the Hudson Wing. Highlighting all of that, even though it may not be relevant to anything. But there's Guy Hudson's surname, so maybe it is. The Hudson Wing was an expansion to Grandorf Dove, now Grandorf School for the Deaf, first built in 1982. It's a separate, much smaller building, half a block from the main campus, and operates as a smaller independent school that offers free ASL courses for family members, friends, and caretakers of deaf children. According to their history site, they got their name after the president of the Roottrees company generously donated $500,000 towards the reconstruction of the building. There's also a very vague history section that you can somewhat fill in with details about other information you've seen about the school. It mentions that the donation came at the insistence of an employee of Roottrees at the time. It mentions she learned ASL from the main school to surprise her future husband, who was deaf. After realising how useful a service like this could be to non-deaf people who wished to better serve those with hearing issues, she convinced Roottrees management to invest in the school. The Hudson Wing opened and she became the first teacher at the new campus. At first operated only on weekends, but since then it has added afternoon classes on some weekdays. Okay. does not immediately seem relevant. Roottrees Temp is a company with many offices all over the US. The Roottrees company is listed on their site as one of the companies they do business with, though it's far from the only one you recognize. No important information found. Graduate of the School for the Deaf near Butler and was regularly listed in articles with other local schools. The Butler County Times archives includes what seems to be an endless list of snow cancellations, extracurricular activities, and weekend events that began over 70 years ago and stretched until the last mentioned in 1990. Amidst the avalanche of useless information, you almost miraculously discover one useful article. Grand Horse Dove was at the centre of a crime article from 1982. It seems that someone defaced the school and vehicles outside the brand new Hudson wing of the school. There are multiple broken windows, and one of the teacher's cars was painted with profanities and accusations of infidelity. A few weeks later, a follow-up article provides more details. There was one arrest. Thomas Hughes was coincidentally a former student at the school. Apparently, the destruction came weeks after he married the school's newest teacher, Miss Hughes. She was not a teacher when he went. He graduated a few years earlier. According to the reporter's investigation into the police reports, trials, and restraining orders, Mr. Hughes was convinced that he was not the father of Miss Hughes' current pregnancy. He was released on bail, and the school has agreed not to press criminal charges after an agreement was made to pay for the damages and for the couple to begin the divorce proceedings. It seems Thomas Hughes, Miss Hughes, and the Hudson Wing have all avoided further appearances in the Butler County Times. May or may not be relevant. Let's try its current name as well. Different results. Grand Horse School for the Deaf has made a few odd appearances here and there in the Butler County Times since 1990. It's not too many that you can't look at all of them, and so after scrolling through a few pages you manage to find something incredibly useful in an article that isn't even focused on the school itself. Local students provide key evidence and scientific study. The article, from March of this year, mentions that the Ford sisters, who attend public school in Butler County, are one of only a handful of identical twins in the world who suffer from two different genetic issues. One of them has asthma and the other has a deadly allergy to peanuts. Their mother, a Miss Susie Ford, who is principal at the nearby Grandorf School for the Deaf, was originally contacted by researchers looking to identify if there are any sets of twins where one was born deaf and the other was not. Well, she didn't have any twins attending her school. She asked if her daughters, Melissa and Heather, could be useful, and it turns out they were. She says they couldn't be more different. My youngest, we'll call her that even though it's only by about 15 minutes, is shy but essentially hasn't stopped running from the moment she learned to scamper. Asthma has kept her sister off the soccer field, but she's the definition of extrovert and is even performing in a local production of Is There Life After High School later this year. The article includes a picture added to your evidence, and therefore is extremely likely to be relevant. We also have some names. Let's have a look at this picture. Twin on the left is holding an inhaler, and the twin on the right is holding an EpiPen. 4 twins were used as part of a nationwide study of how allergies and other diseases affect twins differently. Okay. So this is probably going either here or here. Let's keep digging here a little bit further. Same article. High school performed the thing with the thing we already know. And nothing relevant found whatsoever. To the more generic search box we go. Nothing relevant. Nothing relevant. Nothing relevant. Look back at this article again. Divorced. Meaning that in all likelihood, they are over here. Let's start putting them in. Thomas Hughes. Susan, I guess. Sure. And teacher is not on the list. I guess that is only a part-time job, huh? So that kind of implies... Yeah, she appears in here. That's back in 82, though, so she surely doesn't work there anymore. And we also don't got a picture. Nothing relevant. Nothing relevant. Okay, that might be a little bit of a dead end, though, but we can definitely put her daughters in. Principal. Still don't got a photo, though. It's definitely none of those people. Just goes back here again. Ba 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 ba. Do 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 do. Okay, so we know that Heather is the performer. And is therefore the younger of the two. Heather Ford. Melissa Ford. Yeah, they're in high school, not college. Heather is the one with asthma. So she's the one on the left. So I have them backwards. There, I am happy with that. I am happy with you, I just don't have a picture. Okay. What next? Don't think we need this anymore. Or this, or this. Or really any of that. Oh, I really wish I could find a picture of you. So long, it doesn't even fit in the search box properly. Yeah, I don't know how I'm gonna get a photo of you. Maybe I can get photos of the employee list at some point. But, kinda dead-ended. Let's start going down this chain instead. Clementine isn't that popular a last name, and you must have found a Stuart Clementine listed as one of many names as an emergency services website in New Orleans. He's a police officer. He has no web presence. Provides nothing useful. Nothing relevant. This is going to turn up relevance, though, at least if the evidence we already had was any indication. Mary Beth Clementine was a singer most popular in the years between 1942 and 1959. She travelled around the country performing at churches. Her repertoire was a mix of religious and pop songs, and though she only recorded a few records, they seem lost to time. Anyone you find mentioned was a cover of He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, released under the label New Edison. One thing Mary Beth was known for was her adoptions. She's listed on many sites that mention adoption and the history of adoption. She adopted 2 children in the late 1940s, Stuart and Mark. She also spoke as an advocate for the benefits of adoption in front of the United States Congress in 1949, who were convening to discuss the then recent first adoption of an African-American child to a white family in the United States. She was specifically there to detail her experience going through the system to adopt Stuart. However, the son was adopted later, and according to a single line on one adoption site, under unusual circumstances. In 1959, it surfaced that Mary Beth had been twice divorced, both times to her manager Sterling. This ended her career with the religious audience she had been catering to, and while she performed occasionally since then, she mostly faded into obscurity. Passed away in 1994 at the age of 76 of a stroke. We can probably get rid of that giant note. Okay. New Edison was a small record label based in Los Angeles that existed for a few years in the 40s. It raced to cover records of songs that were gaining in popularity. According to a website about the history of its recorded sound, it was named after its father, Sterling Edison. Yeah. Its biggest claim to fame is being sued by the estate of Thomas Edison in Edison Records vs. Edsel. You also find a few references to New Edison and Mary Beth Clementine on records about old records. Sites about old records. One collector says the Holy Grail is a re-release of the Old Rugged Cross, and says the first edition was originally published before she legally changed her name. Another site claims the police had to be called to New Edison Records after its owner, Sterling Edison, got into a physical altercation in public leading into a divorce. There are no cited sources or evidence, and the site's context seems user-submitted. There's an email address at the bottom and the phrase, "Send me your stories about old Hollywood and I will add them to the page." Popular hymn, covered by many, many artists. Edison Records was one of the first record labels named after Thomas Edison. The history of the company seems very unimportant, except for potentially a lawsuit they filed in 1949, Edison Records vs. Edsel. A website about lawsuits mentions this as a fun case because the name of the lawsuit was actually the biggest problem for the person being sued. A record producer who called himself Edison was immediately outed as not actually being named Edison. Edsel was a German last name. And at the time of the founding of the company, the US was at war with Germany. The company's founder immediately settled to try and get the case to go away, but the damage was done. So his actual name... Sterling Edsel. Okay. Useful. I think that might be pretty much everything we can get out of this article. But I'm sure I can find more in here. From the top. Nothing relevant. Nothing relevant. Mary Beth Clementine came to Butler County a few times and played religious hymns at the Miracle Congregation's church. She's mentioned twice, though the first visit from 1949 was significantly more substantial. Miracle Congregation welcomes Mary Beth Clementine with open arms. The article mentions that the church's leader was moved when he heard Mary Beth's recording of one of his favourite hymns, The Eye is on the Sparrow, and reached out to her personally. His Eye is on the Sparrow holds a very special meaning to me. As you know, I've had a difficult upbringing, and it's no secret that my own eyes have always been a source of struggle. The song is about overcoming sadness and hardship through Jesus. If God can find a way to watch over every sparrow, he can certainly watch over those made in his image. My family's fortune does me no good as a man of the Lord. It's much better spent spreading his word, and I felt a kinship with Mary Beth ever since I heard her voice. When I learned her personal story, I knew I had to help her in whatever way I could. The Bible is full of adoptions, from Moses to Ezra. Spending your life taking care of those helpless to help themselves is incredibly noble. She and her son are welcome to stay in our guest home. A second visit was a few years later in 1953. The article mentions that her first visit was a massive success, and at the insistence of Miracle's congregation, she returned for an encore performance. It also mentions that the unusual circumstances of her second son's adoption have prevented her from touring recently, but doesn't clarify. So, I think, if I've worked this all out properly, we have you. We have you. I know your occupation is police officer, but I kinda don't want to fill it in quite yet. Because I think that'll potentially lock me in. $49. Yeah, we're up here. Performer? No. Dancer? No. Musician. Let's go with that. And... Mark. This is Sterling Etzel. Which makes you Mark Clementine. This is interesting, because Tewart I don't think is a blood relative, but Mark might be. And we know comparatively little about him. Especially because, what's all this? We know nothing about any of that yet. Alright. Let's punch it in properly. Police officer. You. And I guess that means I've gotten at least some stuff wrong. I guess you could be backwards. Doesn't look like it. I think I've got this in the wrong place entirely. Maybe. Well, let's punch it in both places and see what happens. I don't like this, though. This seems too early. 1921? It's much too early. Pretty sure I have you two the right way around. Hmm. Well, let's keep going. Marybeth Clementine has reviewed and advertised many times in Modern Music Monthly, but the most popular recording was the release of her cover, He's Got the Whole World in His Hands, released with the label New Edison. Modern Music Monthly has a very positive view of her cover, and the writer complimented her voice and the tone of her guitar. The review had nothing to say about Marybeth herself, so it's not of much use to your investigation. Also, other Marybeth Clementine releases that appeared over the years. One of them was the Old Rugged Cross, the only song advertised but not reviewed. Advertised quite a few signs. One of the first reviewed by the magazine, however, it listed the artist as Marybeth Quaker. Aha. Further aha. Very good. I am indeed in the correct place on the tree. And I guess that'll be that, gentlemen. They probably left high school, haven't they? They'll be in college now. Because if we're leaving high school earlier in 1999, it is now August. That's probably why those didn't lock in. Easy mistake to make. Alright. Good, that eliminated one of my company records years as well. Knocked down a couple of the others, I think. Still have a loose thread here somewhere, apparently. Still have no idea how this plays into anything at all. Right, and I can put in Regina Salazar. That's why this still has a 1. So this, I think, is now empty. Let's see. Nothing relevant in those. Not sure that would turn up much else useful anyway. We need information on you, if I can get it. Crocodile Clementine is listed on a website titled The Infamy List. It's a massive list of criminals known for odd crimes. Though Mark's nickname could imply he hails from Florida, a lot of others on the list come from there, or Australia, Mark is listed as being from Los Angeles. He has a pretty big entry and seems like a real piece of work. There's a very small note about him being the basket baby of 1950, but most everything else comes from his adulthood. He lost his job in 1975 as a pilot for a regional airline after he tried to board the wrong airline's plane. He was drunk. He was charged with trespassing and assault. That sounds vaguely familiar as well. I think that's a real story from somewhere. In 1982, he was arrested for transporting smuggled animals over the Canadian and Mexican borders for an illegal reptile supplier in Los Angeles. He was apparently quite successful for the first 4 years, but was caught when he had to make an emergency landing in Portland after he was bitten on the foot by a crocodile, hence the nickname. Apparently the Portland Telegraph is credited as having given him his nickname. His mugshot from this incident has been added to your photos. In 1993, he was released on parole, but his freedom didn't last long. He was arrested in 1994 in San Diego for violating it in an attempt to visit his daughter's graduation. He famously punched the principal, a man named Billy Sims. This incident received national press. Okay, where am I putting all of this? In here, I guess. Let's delete some of this old rubbish. That's sorted, that's sorted. We got that, we know that. Don't need that, don't need that. And we don't need that. All that. From the top, this time in relation to... Mark. That might be worth looking up. We might be able to find that article. And we have a name down here. And we know that he has a daughter. That was in 94, which is only 5 years ago. So, probably this person. Okay, we cannot mark gender this time. And we have a photo. Once you verify this person, you'll be able to add bonus photos. Hooray! What are we even putting you down as? Criminal isn't exactly, well... Is criminal an occupation? Argue about that one. Still, it isn't on the list here, at the very least. I can tell you that. I guess we'll put pilot. It's probably his last job. And it is on the list. Let's go with that. His daughter has graduated, so probably isn't a student anymore. Let's get a new periodical. Portland Telegraph is your run-of-the-mill newspaper based out of Portland. They have a website with a lot of dry statistics about how many subscribers they have, how many issues there have been, and awards they've won. Doesn't have any useful data in and of itself, but it gives me yet another thing for this list that I expect I'll be using shortly. Goes to the same place. What about this note? A few sites about true stories focused on and based around religion mention that in 1950 a gospel singer named Mary once found herself dealing with a real-life baby Moses situation. Apparently, she was a rather prominent supporter of the concept of adoption, and someone decided to test how much. They left a baby on her doorstep in a blanket. According to the sites, she adopted him without question, and raised him as her own son. Though it wasn't national news, in many circles he became known as the Basket Baby, and even went on tour with her as he grew up. None of the websites state who the woman or baby were, likely to prevent people from looking into either of the people too closely. From context, you know that it's Mary Beth Clementine who would later be shunned due to her personal life, and son Mark would later be known as Crocodile Clementine. How's about this name? Billy Sims is the principal of Sandstone Canyon High School, who had his 15 minutes of fame in '94 when he was punched by Crocodile Clementine at a graduation ceremony. Pretty much every news organisation, from trustworthy to tabloid, seemed to have their own take on the altercation. It wasn't the punch that captured the nation's attention, however. Instead, it was Billy Sims' matter-of-fact response to the threat and his comments afterwards, as heard in a now-famous audio clip from someone who was recording the ceremony. Billy saw Mark hop onto the graduation stage and said, "Sir, you'll want to sit down or we'll have a problem." At that point, Crocodile reportedly sucker-punched him in the face. Billy, apparently only slightly dazed, said, "Alright sir, I guess we'll have a problem." Clementine tried to throw another punch, but Sims anticipated it and performed a manoeuvre that spectators described as a wrestling move mixed with a backwards somersault, which immediately brought both men to the floor, ending with Sims straddling Clementine, keeping him neutralised. As security arrived, the recording captured someone asking, "How did you do that?" And Sims' response was famously, "Trust me, I'm as surprised as anyone." Amazing. But also pretty much irrelevant, except maybe this particular line right at the beginning. Sandstone Canyon High School is in San Diego. Not a lot else about it apart from mentions of this incident. Fine. Portland Telegraph was the one who provided the nickname Crocodile Clementine and has some details about Crocodile Clementine's first major arrest. He was flying weekly between Los Angeles, Juarez, and Vancouver in a small plane. His flights were very low, literally under the radar. He was only caught because he was bit by a crocodile on the leg and had to call in a mayday since he was losing blood. He tried to tell them that he was a crop duster who somehow cut his leg on a loose piece of metal in the cockpit, but his story seemed very odd, and the controllers quickly alerted the police without informing him. When he landed, they were waiting, and he was promptly arrested. As you do. County Butler Times also reported on him, but it's extraneous. News Time did a small piece about a fight between Sims and Crocodile, but I tried to approach it from a different perspective. Their goal was to paint a picture of the two men involved from others who knew them best. Not only did they manage to interview Sims' wife, Clara, as well as multiple staff members at the school, but they also hunted down Colleen Webb, Mark's ex-wife. According to the section with Colleen, she and he met when he worked for an airline. She worked in an airport newsstand. He was a drinker and would often have wild mood swings. When he was charged with assault of a fellow pilot in 1975 and lost his job, they divorced. At the time, she was pregnant with their second daughter and felt she needed to get out before things got worse. She left him and moved to San Diego to live with her sister and told her eldest that her dad had to fly planes for the army. She raised them both by herself, and though she never went through the trouble of changing their names legally, they used the Weber name so that nobody could connect them to her ex-husband. Meaning that we have a name for over here now. Clean web. Do I go with Webb as the surname here, or Clementine? I guess we'll go with the name that they were given at birth, since that is the standard. And we'll fill in that. Just lead me to the same place. Oh no. The Portland Telegraph had an article slightly longer than most about the Billy Sims incident, mostly because the assaulter, Crocodile Clementine, had appeared in the paper before. Because of the somewhat comedic sensationalism of the events in question, and because their readers were already familiar with Mark Clementine, they filed it under a special banner called Croc Watch. It mentions that our good friend Clementine was actually in attendance at the high school graduation because his daughter was walking the stage. He was apparently not allowed to attend. His ex-wife had a restraining order filed on behalf of her daughter, but he did so anyway. It was unknown to the school staff, including Sims, at the time, who he was, but a security guard recognized him, and that's when the trouble started. Clementine was approaching the side of the stage to try and avoid the guard when the exchange between him and Sims took place. The article finishes by facetiously, I know what that word means, but I don't know how to pronounce it, asking what will Croc get up to next? Stay tuned for more Croc Watch. Unfortunately for your investigation, as far as you can tell, there were no more instances of Croc Watch. Probably because he was in prison, I would guess. Piketty magazine is kinda sleazy, so they're not afraid to publish a few details that more reputational news publications normally wouldn't. You look up the Billy Sims incident, and it seems they did report on it. You gain a few new bits of information that may not be useful. Billy Sims was once arrested for throwing a Molotov cocktail at a company that was found to be testing their products on animals. According to police paperwork, Crocodile Clementine's bail was paid for by Torristato Jacobson. It was fairly expensive. Piketty interviewed other students that were at the event to find out if anyone knew anything, and the word going around is that Mark Clementine showed up because his daughter Mary was graduating that night. We have a name. Highlight only the relevant part, please. I do not require extraneous information. While we're on the subject, what do you got to say about some of this other stuff? This goes to the same place. Nothing relevant. Nothing relevant. Who's this character? Hugo Fiesta, a regional Mexican fast food chain, held a competition in '93 that offered free meals for life for anyone that legally changed their name to Tostarito. The Tostarito was a burrito with a cylindrical tostada shell inside the flour tortilla. According to a few different sources, Tostarito Jacobson used to be named Lucinda. Great. But where even are you on the tree? Are you here or here? Probably down here. Lucinda isn't even on our list of names, so this might be completely irrelevant. It might be someone not directly related. Nothing relevant. Nothing relevant. Nothing relevant. Nothing relevant. Nothing relevant. Goes back here again. Huh. Not been relevant. Updated for 8 months, it may now be irrelevant. There's a Climbot article about Edith Jacobson that also mentions the Helen Roottrees and Lucinda Jacobson. Trespassing. What do you mean this may now be irrelevant? So this is, like, way up there. Which... does this even really line up timeline-wise? When is this? 71. So there's also an Edith Jacobson. My sisters. It doesn't look like they're over here. This may be a bit of a dead end, but it's a weird dead end if it is. Predates all of this. Strange indeed. Use time, nothing. Nothing. Nothing from Portland. I doubt we're going to find anything in these last few. Edith Jacobson. Are they already somewhere else completely on our list? Yeah, Edith Jacobson is up here. So, clearly not relevant. So I think it's just that Lucinda is Edith's sister. but is otherwise not really relevant to anything. Marine comments put a few articles from local news stations in Pennsylvania. Some of the people attempting to track down Anonymum were harassing her. She recently had to take a leave of absence because people showed up at the car dealership where she works. She's begging people to stop the accusations so she can get back to living a normal life. In every article you can find, the journalists involved have independently verified that she is not Anonymum. Aha. We have more information here. This is a new thread that we haven't discovered yet. Chris Rafferty's prodigy site seems to have been discovered by the masses. Gone are the art pictures of his cousins. Instead, it's a list of questions that people kept emailing him. The most relevant ones are the following. You're the son of Clark Rafferty. Yes, but I didn't grow up with him. I remember him from when I was a little kid, but I moved away with my mom when I was very young. We left Pennsylvania and moved back home to Virginia. We lived there with Pete, my stepdad. My dad and I spoke a few times when I found his phone number on a check he sent us in the mail when I was 15. He was happy to hear from me and now calls me once a month and came to visit me at college. He tells me about things I don't remember and people like Guy Hudson and Ernie Madsen. My dad and I get along, but obviously we aren't very close. I used to know the Roottrees, but never the sisters. I was in the office sometimes when I was a kid, and I definitely met Guy Hudson before he died, but I don't remember. My memory is weird. It's hard to know what I actually remember and what I only think I do because I have pictures. For example, I have a photo from when I was 5 and in the office with my dad and Guy was there. I made myself sick by eating chocolate and some woman who I don't know cleaned my face. I don't know if my memories of that cover the picture or not. Photo added to evidence. I know Annie had a heart problem because my dad told me on one of our phone calls. I asked him about the poison because I saw it on the Roottrees Curse website. And he emailed me some old stuff, including the proof, but even with the proof, the website didn't take it down. He spelled finance wrong. Or fiance. I'm not good at spelling or writing. I'm good at painting and other art. I'm going to school to learn how to edit movies. I want to make cartoons someday. Lulu is much better at spelling. Okie dokie. Well, that was useful. It got me a picture. Photos on Cliff Rafferty's website. According to Chris, it's a photo of him, his father, and Guy Hudson. While they were distracted, he snuck into the supply of chocolate they kept for visitors and tours. Chris Rafferty did not know who the woman in the photo was. Okay. Still. Yeah, sure. Does look a bit like him. We'll go with that. This will be Guy then. And who are you? So we've got those two. I recognize that picture. Okay. Maybe not quite as useful as I first thought, but that gives us a photo of somebody. I mean, it could be. May as well. I don't have any other ideas at the moment. I don't know who any of these other people are, so I may as well put that picture there. Though, it's probably wrong, because stuff isn't being filled in. Okay. Yeah, I'm not sure where to go from here. Give me a hint. Fine. We're missing something from over here, apparently. But what? Is this whole business? I'm not sure this is going anywhere. I mean, yeah, that too. I mean, sure, I could always go back to here again, I guess. Re-get some of this stuff. Maybe. When visiting Lauren's book, there's a single passage that focuses on potential affairs in her immediate family, added to the rest of the evidence. Okay. Yeah, I didn't think to re-go through here. This is slowly ticking down, which is good. An entry titled Cruelty from Lauren Roottrees' diary, written in 1963. It focuses on the relationship between her mother and father. While only offered redundant information during your previous investigation, it mentions the subject of affairs and may be more useful this time round. I forgot the name of the second diary, which might also be useful to re-grab. Can I find that? Can I find that before we go too far into all this? Maybe not. I am no stranger to true love. Jacob and I married at an age that most deem unfit for marriage, but he was also enlisting at an age that most deem unfit for war. We had no choice. I knew in my heart that marriage was one of the ages. He and I would still be together today, if not for Okinawa. That was nearly 20 years ago, but there was an emptiness in my soul. I do not understand my contemporaries. So many girls I went to school with have taken multiple lovers. So many of my girlfriends' husbands have been unfaithful. If I'm able to remain true to the ghost of a man, with no chance for physical reciprocation, no potential for long conversation, how could it be so hard to love somebody you can reach out and touch? Someone you can joke with? I've not had to deal with such madness at home. My parents are a perfect match in the worst way. My mother's cruelty is a perfect fit for father's general spite. In turn, Pop's status enables her incessant need to gloat and feel superior. I've grown up with their cruelty and disdain for others my entire life. Even my family remains unspared. I make fun of my grandpop and his family sayings. Blood is thicker than syrup, but nothing's thicker than Elias. They mimic Grandma Gwyneth's lisp and see our kindness as a weakness. Eliath, please remember Tham. Not even our family's maladies and religion go unmocked. Remember, God only put one eye in Miracle. I can say, without a doubt in my mind, that my parents have never had eyes for anyone outside of their marriage. They're too self-centered to look astray. Okay. Buh.